So now here's what we're doing. We're stepping back from the 5 points and we're asking, what difference does that make? What happens to your life? And I feel like I've got the advantage now of speaking at the end of my pastoral ministry and not just at the beginning where I could say, here's what I think it's going to do for you. I'm going to tell you, here's what it did for me and what I think it would do for you. So I got 10 of these, and we'll see if we can give them about 3 minutes each. Makes me stand in awe of God and leads me into the depth of true God-centered worship. First time I saw while teaching Ephesians at Bethel in 1977, the praise of the glory of God's grace as the goal of all things, I was just blown away. 3 times in Ephesians, we are to live for the praise of His glory. And it has led me to see that we cannot enrich God, and therefore His glory is most glorified in me when I'm most satisfied in Him. So worship is an end in itself. It has made me feel how low and inadequate are my affections, so that the Psalms of longing come alive and make worship intense as a heart, as a deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. The bigger your God gets and the more glorious He is and the more pervasive He is in your experience and the world, the more you see the inadequacy of your own affections for Him, and worship becomes a longing that's very intense. And God, I think, is very much honored by such longings. Number 2, it protects me from trifling with divine things. It helps me mingle gladness and gravity in a robust and healthy way. One of the curses of our culture, seems to me, is banality, cuteness, cleverness. Worse now than 50 years ago, I think, and it was bad then. Television and social media is the main sustainer of our addiction to superficiality and triviality. God is swept into this, hence the trifling with divine things. Earnestness in our day is not excessive or widespread. It might have been once. And there are imbalances in certain unhealthy people, granted. But this quote from Robertson Nicole about Charles Spurgeon is still timely. Evangelism of the humorous type may attract multitudes, but it lays the soul in ashes and destroys the very germs of religion. Mr. Spurgeon is often thought by those who do not know his sermons to have been a humorous preacher. As a matter of fact, there was no preacher whose tone was more uniformly earnest, reverent, and solemn. I really would recommend this book right here. If you're new to Reformed theology and you're wondering, is there a simple book? There are several in the bookstore. I recommended a whole bunch to Matt, and I would put you onto those. And I didn't mention this one. I'm sorry. So Matt, if you're in the room, go ahead and add Forgotten Spurgeon to the list someday, and the people who go there later will see it in the weeks to come, maybe. But the Forgotten Spurgeon is just a kind of biography of Spurgeon, drawing out how Reformed theology or the doctrines of grace or Calvinism made a difference in his life. And a lot of people have skipped that part of Spurgeon. That's why he wrote the book. But the point here is, when you believe in the fullness of total depravity, unconditional election, definite atonement, let's use that instead of limited, irresistible grace, and the perseverance of the saints, all held together by an infinitely sovereign God, it gives such a weight to life, a glorious weightiness to life that nothing can be trifled with anymore. I don't think it makes people morose. We've laughed a lot in this seminar. But I hope the main feel of the seminar is, good night, that's serious stuff. That's really heavy, weighty, glorious. So that we spread in our culture not more triviality and trifling and silliness and cutesy banter. Everybody seems to be falling in line with the talk show hosts and the stand-up comedians, because it's just so much fun to have people laughing at you, with you, laughing at your jokes and your clever repartee and your turn of a phrase and your hip, cool reference to the latest movie. It's just so foreign from the seriousness of it all. And if you take that to mean, oh yeah, we're going to be, morose and sad and gloomy in church, then you're just not listening to me. Or either you don't have the capacity. I mean, you got silliness and you got moroseness. Those are your two options. Well, you're just not well if those are your only two options. You need to grow up. There are many options in between silly and morose. And I think believing these things helps you find a healthy way of being full of gravity and weight and full of healthy joy. That enables you to have the biggest, most solid kinds of pleasures in God and laugh your lungs out over your daddy's jokes when he comes home. That's number 2. Number 3, it makes me marvel at my own salvation. In Ephesians, we've looked a lot at chapter 1, chosen before the foundation of the world, predestined unto the praise of the glory of his grace. Those are God's great purposes. We haven't looked at verses 17 to 20, which we should have. And there, Paul is praying. And what he prays is that the eyes of our hearts would be enlightened so that we would know 3 things: the greatness of our inheritance, the greatness of our calling, and the greatness of the power at work in us who believe. Our inheritance, our calling, and power. And what he wants the heart to do is see those. So you got theology in chapter 1 saying, here's the great purpose of God, that he be praised. And then Paul knows beginning of chapter 1 and later in chapter 1, that the problem is we don't see that as glorious, and therefore we don't feel anything, we don't praise his glory. And so he prays, oh God, open the eyes of our hearts. And I think seeing these things gives God something to open your eyes to, so that when you see it, you are stunned. Every ground of boasting is removed. I'm right here. Every ground of boasting is removed. Broken-hearted joy and gratitude abounds. When God has given us a taste of his own majesty and our own wickedness, then the Christian life becomes a thing very different than the conventional piety. Edwards describes it beautifully. This is just about my favorite paragraph in Jonathan Edwards. The desires of the saints, however earnest, are humble desires. Their hope is a humble hope. Their joy, even when it is unspeakable and full of glory, is a humble, broken-hearted joy. You got a category for broken-hearted joy? You got a category for that? If you haven't, you're not old enough yet. You're too young. Not experienced enough. You haven't been broken in a way that will show you can rejoice in it, not just after it. Broken-hearted joy leaves the Christian more poor in spirit, more like a little child, more disposed to a universal lowliness of behavior. If my theology of sovereignty is not having that effect on me, it is not the fault of the theology. It's here. Don't blame my theology for my sin. This is the effect that it has when we are responsive to it. Number 4, it makes me alert to man-centered substitutes that pose as good news. One of the most effective protections of the church is to have the ballast of sovereignty in the bottom of our boat so that as the winds are blowing, we may tack hard like this in the sailboat, but it's not going to flop over because it's got the ballast of sovereignty in the bottom of the boat. In the 18th century in New England, the slide from Jonathan Edwards' high view of sovereignty of God led first to Arminianism, then to Universalism, then to Unitarianism. And so also in England in the 19th century after Spurgeon. These doctrines of grace are a bulwark against man-centered teachings in many forms that gradually corrupt the church and make her weak from the inside, all the while looking strong and popular. Contrast 1 Timothy 3:15, the church of the living God, the pillar and bulwark of the truth. I have said, just face on, and some of you have heard me, to pastors of churches with 10, 15, 20,000 people, I have said to them, please give yourself more concertedly to the truth. You're a very good communicator. God has entrusted you with an incredible ministry. Don't dumb this down continually. Give yourself to the riches of grace in the last half of your ministry life, because your legacy will be more enduring and your effectiveness more pervasive if you give yourself to the whole counsel of God instead of pragmatic, simple things week in and week out. I believe that. So if you're going to be a pastor, I'm not encouraging you to be a pragmatic pastor, but one who may grow more slowly, because not everybody loves to hear truth, but you will be stronger in the end, and your church will be a bulwark and pillar of the truth. Number 5, it makes me groan over the indescribable disease of our secular God-belittling culture. I can hardly listen to a news show or read the news or look at a TV show or ad or billboard without feeling the burden. God is missing. And what I feel so sad about, and it's not new, and so I shouldn't talk as though it was a crisis that's new, because it was the same in the 50s and 60s as it is now, but here it is again. I've talked to a lot of younger people and middle-aged people who don't feel that at all. They're happy to watch 18 weeks of a TV show, and it doesn't even enter their mind. God is gone, or hated, or belittled, and I should be weeping and troubled. No, just happy. It's fun. Fun. I almost hate that word because it is so used by everybody to describe preaching and ministry and funerals and weddings and TV, and our universal word of joy is fun, which shows how thin things have gotten. When God is the main reality and is treated as a non-reality, I tremble at the wrath that is being stored up. Believing these glorious things about God and His ways help me to be shocked. So many Christians are sedated with the same drug as the world, but these teachings that we've spent 8 hours on, they are a great antidote. Does it ever bother you that there's a whole section in the Star Tribune? I mean, newspapers are just about gone, but a whole section in the Star Tribune for the last 50 years and no section on God? There's a whole section on sports and no section on God. I mean, I think some editors are going to give an account of the Judgment Day. Like, excuse me, where was I? Well, we thought church would take care of that. Or God's just missing. God does not like to be missed. I don't even like the term, so you like go to a Christian college class on sociology, come to the end of 10 sessions, say, is there God in this room? God in this class? Oh, he's the foundation of everything we believe. But we're learning from all sources now. He's the foundation. Tell you what, I got a foundation in my house made out of cement blocks, and I never think about it. And it gets no glory from not being thought about. God does not like to be taken for granted. So don't call him the foundation of your life and then forget him for 10 weeks and think he's honored. So it's a big deal. It makes me groan over the indescribable disease of our secular God-belittling culture. 6, it makes me confident that the work he planned and began, he will finish. It gives me personal assurance. And yeah, there it is again, Romans 8. There isn't a more solid structure to build your life on than the doctrines of grace that we've been talking about. There isn't a more steel spine, backbone for life. Deep, deep confidence for life. 7, it makes me see everything in light of God's sovereign purposes. That from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever and ever. All of life relates to God. There's no compartment where he's not all important and the one who gives meaning to everything. 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. I mean, just think how pervasive that statement is. So watch this, okay? This is a good time. I'm thirsty. Every time you do that, it should be to the glory of God. And you do things like that all day long. That's simple. Is he that pervasive in your life? Is he that conscious? Is he just always dominant? Is he there? These doctrines, I'm arguing, if once they take you, they're there. You're there. He's there. Always. So I wrote an article for the church years ago called How to Drink Orange Juice to the Glory of God. You can find that at the website. Just type in orange juice. I said things like, thank him for the taste buds on your tongue. Thank him for the vitamin C that's going to keep you from getting scurvy. Thank him by enjoying the taste. He made it. It says something about his own delectable nature. Enjoy it for his sake as for taste of him. Give thanks for trees that grow oranges. Give thanks for stores that sell oranges. Give thanks for truck drivers who get them to you, and airplanes. Give thanks for refrigeration that God made. And all these things are going to God. And then, I was doing this with my sons. I wrote this when I had 4 sons sitting around the table. I said, how do you drink orange juice? If they all like orange juice and I have just enough for 3, glorify God with your orange juice by saying, oh, well, just pour a little less in my glass so that it goes around. That's the way you glorify God. In fact, the context in 1 Corinthians is love. It's not gratitude mainly, it's love this way. Give thanks that with the strength you're getting from it, you're going to serve Him today and dedicate yourself to serve Him. Just be aware of God in the drinking of the orange juice and let it all become worship. I'm tempted to go and look at another text on that, but seeing God's sovereign purpose worked out and hearing Paul say that he accomplishes all things according to the counsel of his will makes me see the world this way. All things he accomplishes. 8. It makes me hopeful that God has the will, the right, and the power to answer prayer that people be saved and changed. So I'm arguing now that believing the doctrines of grace that we just talked about, especially irresistible grace, should give you indomitable confidence to pray for the impossible to happen. The warrant for prayer is that God may break in and change things. He can turn the wheel around. Hallowed be thy name means, when you pray it, cause people to hallow your name. So you're asking God to act on a non-hallower to make them hallow. Or a weak hallower, like me, to hallow with intensity. Sanctify and honor and reverence God with intensity. Cause hearts to be open to that. We should take the new covenant promises. Now, the question was asked earlier, how do you pray for unbelievers if you are a Calvinist? And I'm going to give you now 5 or 6 examples. We should take the new covenant promises of God and plead with God to bring them to pass in our children and our neighbors and among the unreached peoples of the world. So here they come. I'm simply taking, and you can do this too, the new covenant promises, which are blood-bought, and asking God to make them come true for others who are not yet saved. God, please take out of their flesh the heart of stone and give them a new heart of flesh. Lord, circumcise, right here. Lord, circumcise their heart so that they love you. Father, put your Spirit within them and cause them to walk in your statutes. Lord, grant them repentance and a knowledge of the truth that they may escape from the snare of the devil. Father, open their hearts so that they may believe the gospel. Just take biblical promises and turn them into prayers. Because we have a sovereign God who has a right and a power to answer those prayers. An Arminian cannot pray that way. Because the Arminian always has to put in a little clause that says, but they have free will, God, and you can't intrude upon that. You can't become the decisive cause of their faith. You always have to let them be the decisive cause of their faith, because that's what free will means, and you're not going to break that. And I don't pray that way, and the Bible, I don't think, encourages us to pray that way. Number 9, it reminds me, believing these things reminds me that evangelism is essential for people to come to Christ and be saved, but that its success is not finally dependent on me or limited by the hardness of the unbeliever. So my weakness and their hardness is no obstacle to God successfully saving somebody. So it gives hope to evangelism to believe these things, especially in hard places. I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also. I must bring them also. Jesus is talking. He brings them. They will heed my voice. His sheep will hear his voice and follow. So our job is to sound like Jesus when we talk. The words of Jesus, the words of the gospel, and he gives them ears so that they hear and follow. Do not be afraid, Paul. Go on speaking here at Corinth, and do not be silent. I have many people in this city. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. There it is. God gives the growth. You plant, you water. Oh, yes. No seed without planting, no seed without watering, or no plant without watering. But God is the one who decisively gives life and growth to the seed. What is impossible with man is possible with God. It is God's work, so throw yourself into it with abandon. I hope you become more fruitful evangelists because of this seminar. More devoted and fruitful prayers because of this seminar. Finally, number 10. It makes me sure that God will triumph, believing these things. I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient times, things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. Amen. Conclusion. That's slide 179. Last one. God gets the glory. We get the joy forever. God gets the exaltation. We get the exaltation. So if anybody ever says to you, one letter can hardly make any difference. God is to be exalted. We are not. We exalt in his exaltation. One letter makes all the difference in the world. That no human being boast in the presence of God. That's the negative purpose of all these doctrines. Let him who boasts, boast in the Lord. That's the positive purpose of all these doctrines. Let no one boast in man. Let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. This is what life is for. Boasting in the Lord and helping others come to see him as worthy of being boasted in.